Before the Rush arrived, I think first off, a lot of people were Roughnecks fans, especially in the South. Quickly became Rush diehards.
As most lacrosse players growing up before that time, it was you were watching it on TV. You were watching the NLL on TV. So to see the Rush come to Saskatchewan, I think was a lot of lacrosse players' dreams. It was something that was almost surreal at the moment.
But our numbers just weren't growing. We were at a stable pace. But the Rush forced people with the experience and locations to have champions, to run teams and develop programs and really expand what we wanted. So now we've got kids that see the Rush and they want to play for the Rush. So we need to provide them with some high-end training and high-end opportunities and more games, more experience. And the Rush was a great addition to our province for having a professional sports team up in Saskatoon, but also that growth of adults seeing the game and being, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. This is great. I definitely want my kids to play this.
It was hard to really get the hype. I always I work a lot with Jeff Schattler, and I always tell him, and I don't think he believes me, but I'm like, I can tell a kid to do this 150 times, but Jeff will tell them once and they'll do it. Right. So, I mean, it was hard because there was nothing relatable within the province. The best we had was me telling somebody that this person was great. Like, we've had great players. David Mitchell. I mean, we got tons of examples all throughout Saskatoon and southern part of the province. We've had some really great lacrosse players in Saskatchewan. The unfortunate part is they weren't recognizable to the average person. And when I see the average person, I mean the person just starting. If I said, David Mitchell played in Cornell University, they'd be like, who the hell is that? And what's Cornell? And they don't really care. But nowadays, I mean, with the Rush and it's right there, it's in our province. It's like the second riders almost, right? So all of a sudden, everybody knows everybody's name and, it's recognizable and everyone goes, oh, lacrosse, oh, Rush. Oh, I get it. So it's very relatable right across the whole province.
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the exposure. I think with the Rush coming to Saskatchewan, lacrosse and football, we're normally a football province, but lacrosse was also sitting there on the sports page. So for me, that was big. And for all the lacrosse enthusiasts around the province, that's huge because the more exposure we get to this great game, it helps. And with that impact, the Rush, being so successful, it certainly helped broaden the fan base, if you will, and definitely bring lacrosse to another level.
And so that growth happened. And obviously there was a financial growth that allowed a lot of training and coach development, officials development to occur in the province. And that builds the numbers. And now we see that in communities that want lacrosse. They want to get that going, and it'll continue to grow from here.
So that's I believe, driven our numbers quite a bit. So they've changed the landscape. And not only that, the Sask Rush have been very generous to the Saskatchewan Lacrosse Association over the years. I mean, with the 50-50 and the constant support, honestly, they've really took us to a next level in a lot of ways. We are able to afford to have our programs of excellence and have our Team Saskatchewans and bring in the right people, bring in specialized people like Soroketti, for example, to work with our kids, bringing in Jeff Schattler, bringing in, Ben McIntosh and a few others, right? Matthews, I believe, worked with them for a bit too. And, having all of that direction and having some of that, happen, it's amazing. So for me, that's how this is. It's really changed the landscape of how we do things.
with the Rush coming to Saskatchewan, I think the PGLL did benefit. You see the senior league with Saskatoon having 4 teams now, Prince Albert joining sometime around there as well. It's certainly bolstered the amount of teams in the league, and just speaking from a senior standpoint, and really brought some excitement when you went for those Saskatoon road trips. Usually you scheduled around a Rush game, and you got your senior game in before or after, but there was always a Rush game involved, and that added to the road trip, the fun, the excitement, and the camaraderie you'd have with your teammates.
Oh, I think they have. Long term, definitely. Short term, for sure. I know quite a few guys who, kind of look at it and go, I'd like to dust off the old stick. And you know how it is. Mark, you're a lacrosse guy. I mean, you go to those games right after, you're like, man, I have to play this sport in the next 24 hours. It's just like an itch, right? You have to scratch that itch. And I don't know how many times after those games, we're sitting in a parking lot, having a few beverages, throwing the ball around. And I can't explain it. You just have to be there. So I believe that drives a lot of it as well. And I can honestly see in the near future with all the instructors, and if you think of the NLL players that are sticking around, like, Schattler and a few of the other guys, like, yeah, you know what? I can see the PGLL changing dramatically because of that. So
the hope would be that we can offer high-end lacrosse in the province, along with other high-end opportunities for our kids. So I would love to see the PGL continue to grow, add more teams. At one point, there was a tier 1, there was a tier 2, there was senior, there was a lot of things going on, and we can get back to those concepts. But it'll take a little while because our minor programs are expanding. And from there, you look at a bantam kid is a number of years away from getting to junior. And then with that coach development and the long range planning that the SLA does, they're looking at, we want to keep everyone involved in the sport. So when those kids get to the junior levels, there should be qualified coaches and enough officials to ensure that we can have multiple teams in centers and be able to provide them with a great opportunity.
Our seniors getting to a point where we're starting to be very competitive outside of our province. I mean, we've always competed outside of our province, but I'm talking of competing with purpose and trying to place. And so that's not going to go unnoticed. Eventually we're going to get to a point where we're going to have some of those NLL guys stick around. And hopefully we can get that going to a point where they're going to want to play in Saskatchewan year round. Right. And that's the ultimate goal. I mean, that was our goal, I believe 20 years ago when Randy Troback and I were talking. We had the big, Sky is Pink meeting where we'd love to have NLL guys in our league, and we've had them. Jordan Westpratt, for example, was Calgary Roughneck, and then he moved to Saskatchewan to do a teaching job at Notre Dame, and he played with us for 3 or 4 years. I mean, and just his presence and his instruction within our group dramatically helped us. I mean, it took us from standing around the outside taking shots to, actually working a system to get it done, right?
And I remember taking in my first game and checking it out, and you saw the packed house, all the excitement around it, and you really got drawn to it even more than you were before. And I noted all the Rider jerseys in the crowd, and how that was, so surreal in the moment that it was, everyone was caught up in the action and just wearing green for the sake of wearing green. But as the years went on, you saw the Rush jerseys start to come into play, and the excitement around it with the championships. And I think for lacrosse, it took it from that niche sport and put it front and center amongst the sports scene in Saskatchewan, which is always a great thing to see. Something that, like I said, as a kid, I dreamed of, I hoped for, and for it to come to fruition was certainly something that excited me and excited a lot of lacrosse people around the province.